Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Coming Out Stories from India series. Growing up in India in the 80s and the 90s, I had no role models to help affirm my own sexuality. Many of the conversations we've had on Coming Out Stories from India have a similar narrative: no role models, no Indian lived experiences. The last few years, since my own coming out, I've been looking for such stories that could help me in my own journey. Nicola and I decided to launch these Coming Out Stories from India series to ensure that there was access for people who needed to hear these stories. It is very heartwarming for us to receive calls, emails, messages on Instagram from people who are directly in the community or allies or families. And, they're able to relate to such stories now and these lived experiences. I'm Raga Olga D'silva, or Totally Out Now, as you know me. Well, our guest today runs a public group for LGBTQ plus community, yet is extremely private. She's the co-founder of Gaysi Family. Apparently, she's the soul of Gaysi's social media and offline existence. When not thinking of new ways of engaging with the extended Gaysi family, she can be found chilling with the fur babies, enjoying sumptuous keto meals, wow, playing badminton, and hosting lunches and dinners for her friends and family. I want to come back to India so that I can meet this wonderful person. Join me in welcoming Sakshi Juneja.
Hi, Raga.
Sakshi, what an interesting
That was
person
some
you are.
intro.
I, I want to start with keto, but I think I'm going to not start with keto. I'm going to focus on the coming out journey because I'm personally very intrigued about keto. Now, tell me, what is this coming out according to you? I just want to understand.
I mean, to be honest, when I was growing up, we had no language, so there was no such word as coming out. So for me, like I can understand its importance today. I can, on the other hand, also understand the importance of those who choose not to. And I think that's where we come together as a community, is allowing people the space to grow, evolve, uh, experience their own journey as per what is required and suited for them at that point in time. Nothing is constant; we keep changing.
Of course.
So yeah, so no judgments.
No, but Sakshi, like, I mean, I'm of a certain age. So for me, I had no lived experiences, no such language as you're talking about. All this LGBTQ plus, we didn't even know what this meant. But you're much
Yeah.
younger than me. And I'm like a little surprised when I have guests of your age, of this generation. You also say that there wasn't this language. And I wonder, when did the language change, you think, in India?
Uh, I can't really say about India, but I can talk about my own experience. I would say, in the sense of, as far as I can remember, I think I started exploring my sexuality perhaps from the age of 11. Uh,
Sakshi, can you
without,
speak up a bit? Sorry, just a
yeah,
little.
sorry.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
said, from as far as I can remember, I think I started exploring my sexuality from the age of 11. Um, and without really knowing what I'm doing, right? Like you said earlier, there are no role models, there's no popular media representation, nothing. So, in that sense, I think I was pretty fluid in my exploration. Um, and I just went with the flow without really understanding any sort of consequences to my actions or to my feelings. And that perhaps went on till I think I was about 16, 17. Um, Again, I never had a moment where I woke up and said, oh fuck, this is, sorry for using a bad word. But yeah, like waking up in the morning and thinking, oh shit, like my life is ruined and this doesn't seem right. And my peers and my friends and my classmates, etc., are, exploring uh, their relationships or intimacy with the opposite sex, but I'm more inclined to same sex.
We'll
Um,
come back. We'll come back to that. I just want
yeah,
to know about when you said growing up, and you talked about a
yeah,
certain age of 11 years. Where did you grow
yeah,
up, Sakshi? I'm assuming you grew up in India, in Bombay.
yeah.
Is that an
In
assumption?
Bombay, in no, 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 very much in Bombay, in Juhu, pretty much lived in that suburb, and yeah, and regular school, regular college, and like I said, 11. I mean, that's when you kind of realize. No, I mean, it was like having a crush on your teacher, on your
Yeah.
classmates,
Yeah.
um, you know, and pretty much started from there, from hand holding to glances, the textbook stuff.
So I'm when you say that crushes on teachers and your friends, schoolmates, you mean of the same sex, right? Of your
Yes, yes,
of yeah
always,
of
always, always.
girls of
I
girls and
mean,
women.
yeah, but like I mean, it's not that I never admired the opposite sex. Perhaps I do, uh, but there was nothing in me that propelled me to do more, right? Or act on it, or move towards it, or do something about it. Whereas with same sex, with women, it just went with the flow. Like I said earlier, like there was no hesitance, there was no stopping or thinking that okay, this could be wrong. Like I had none of those filters in my head.
I understand. But what I want to understand is that you said that there was, I'm just going to keep repeating this, there
Yeah,
was no language, right? Because I
yeah,
understand that.
yeah,
So, in that
yeah,
kind of a situation, you are in Bombay, you're in Juhu, and you're going to a school, and you feel that you're attracted to people from a person or people from your same sex. So, while there is no language, how do you deal with it? How do you know that this is, children always think about we overthink, although we're not complex when we are kids. So did you ever feel that, or were people calling you, or sorry, suppose your ecosystem full of slurs about homophobia, homophobic people?
nothing. I
Nothing.
think, like I said, I mean, the language was not available to anybody, not just me, right? Even the straight folks, like I don't. I think with what happens is the intimacy that is shared between in female friendships somewhere cloud that. So it's not something that easy, perhaps, at that younger age for others to pick on, I suppose. Uh, so, like I said, since there was lack of language, there was lack of visibility. I mean, and it was for all. So fortunately, perhaps I come from a privileged space where I had no deterrent as such. Hence, perhaps like I said, things just flowed so smoothly for me.
It's so interesting because I think you're an exception on our show, really, coming out stories from India. Because no matter who we've spoken with, which part of India they came from, what age group they come from, and we've had a 23-year-old who said at school, I mean, she's 23, so basically, in your generation, I'm again assuming. So,
No, no, no,
so
no, no. My generation is way.
okay,
I,
but you're the younger generation, as far as I'm
yeah,
concerned, and she was like there was homophobia all around her, including
yeah,
her own friends, her teachers, the principal of the school. So to me, it is very interesting to meet somebody who has basically not had to go through that. Because see, we come
yeah,
from the same ecosystem. We've got films that we watch, books that we read, narratives that are around us, which are constantly homophobic. At least that's the
yeah.
environment. So you're so fortunate. First of all, I must like say congratulations. Wonderful. How about your family? How was your family environment?
Um, my family environment was again from a very privileged space. Money was never the concern. I have older siblings, elder brother and sister. They both are 7 and 8 years elder to me. So you can say I was the youngest uh, child who was allowed to get away with a lot of things. Something my siblings keep complaining about even till today. And my parents were pretty chilled. I think they were like any other Indian parents, where they were like, as long as your grades are good, it's all okay with us. Um, and that's how it was.
So there was no expectation for you to date only boys or, you know, get home, bring home boys only. Nothing like that. There was no expectation.
No, I mean, I think it also depends on a person's personality. I think my personality, right from younger days, was much about outgoing, very sporty, very stubborn. headstrong. Um, I was I was always the unique character among all my cousins, and my family was pretty okay with that. I don't think my mom ever pressured me to have long hair, like from fifth grade, because I used to play badminton for state level, and also I had short hair. I used to be very outdoorsy, um, and they were pretty chilled with all those things. I would say, and it remained like that for the longest time.
And
I
when
mean,
you
at the
went,
age of 16, at the age
yeah.
of 16, my mom was pretty okay with me going to Australia to pursue higher education. I think the only very uncomfortable conversation my parents had with me was after doing some shopping before my leaving for Australia, was a car ride home wherein my mom was like telling my dad to have the sex talk with me, and it was just too cute. Wherein my dad just looked at me and said, yeah, be responsible. And I was like, okay, and that was that. Um, and yeah, so I mean, nothing, nothing in. I mean, I wouldn't say anything problematic I faced till I left for Australia and till I got back.
Okay. So, but in India, like you said, I'm going to keep coming back to that language conversation because there was no awareness or no conversation in the ecosystem that you grew up in. So, if you felt attracted to a girl, how did you demonstrate that, and how was the response?
I mean, I think I've pretty much stayed with with the way I work towards an attraction right from my younger days is
Sakshi,
not
you'll have
do
to just
anything
speak up
about
a
it.
bit, huh? It's
Hi,
just I'm
can you
losing
hear me
you,
now?
huh? Yeah, yeah.
Is it
So
better?
just
Yeah,
yeah, just be aware of that, huh? Just you keep
yeah,
it's on dropping.
yeah. So I'm saying, yeah. So in terms of acting towards attraction, I don't think I've changed much. I pretty much follow the same pattern from my younger days, wherein I do nothing. Uh, but I do. I mean, I would do things in order to get the attention of the other person. Nothing problematic, very safe. But I mean, I think at that younger age, I pretty much played on the vibe that you get from the other person, right? Um, I mean, and that time, as far as I remember, it was just purely affection. It was nothing really physical as such. Um, you just wanted a certain kind of attention from this person, and you kind of played along with the moment and see how it went. But yeah, so I again, like, to be very honest, I don't remember any time where I had to stop and think, like, question. um, it just went so smoothly, and I would say, and this went on like till my late 20s, perhaps.
Wow. So then at some point you moved to Australia, you said at the age of 16. So how was
Yeah.
that for you in Australia? Like life continued from a sexuality point of view? Or did you have conversations with yourself and did you by then accept that oh, maybe I am, did you have a word for it at that time, let's say?
I got somewhat sensitized is once I moved to Australia. Um, uh, I wouldn't say in the first year or two. Um, I already had a partner back then, but it was, I mean, it's like slowly as you grow older, you kind of start understanding, you see representation, you see conversations around it. Um, and that kind of propelled me to learn a little more, explore a little more. And then, even though I was not out, it's like, in certain spaces you're out, and in certain spaces you're not. And in the spaces that I was out, I was exploring in the sense of, like in Sydney, going to King's Cross and walking down uh, queer friendly uh, localities as such in Sydney, or venues, attending some sort of a gay bar night, something like that. But even then, it was just limited to such things. It was not really, again, going into dating or uh, you know exploring in terms of intentional meeting people, but it was just trying to understand and look for those little relatability, even though it was not in the Indian context. but I feel that's where I kind of started my sensibility sensitization um, towards the LGBT community in a very limited sense.
Sure. So to me, it seems like you had a regular life and this was just mainstream. You're part of your life. This is what we talk about, that we should be mainstreaming our lives as well, right? It should not be
Yeah,
about sexuality. And I don't even need to have to ever ask you these questions, or nobody needs to ask me these questions. Oh, was it different for you? And
yeah,
I'm thinking this to me is an ideal life for anybody.
yeah,
So at
yeah,
that point, you made a comment that you were out, but you were not out. And I
yeah.
understand that. It's because we don't have to be out to everyone anyway, because once it's mainstreamed, why do we need to talk about our sexuality? But did your family back home know that you had a partner, and were you able to be vocal with them?
No, that did not happen till many years later.
Okay. And any reason why?
I I was just understanding things myself, and to be very honest, uh, because I was sitting there and they were sitting here, there was not any clashes or interference as such. So I never felt the need to even tell them about it.
So you're totally independent, and your life was independent. There was no conversations with your family. Like, families in India totally sometimes are so intrusive, and, they want to know
Yeah,
everything. Kis kaun hai saath mein, boyfriend hai, girlfriend hai, those kind of conversations constant, because it used
mm,
to happen with me all the time. But over time that changes depending upon what the response is. But so you're saying that in your life, wo kuch nahi tha, nothing like that
yeah,
happened.
no,
So
no,
is there anything, any moment you remember that you feel that, like you said, you had moments of you were also exploring it within yourself, right? Whatever that
yeah,
feeling was.
yeah,
Was there any moment in your life where you felt, this is me? Now this is exactly how I want to live, or this is my love intimate relationship.
yeah. I don't think there was like a like a single moment. I think it's like with passing time, the more you understand, the more you live with your experiences, you kind of you get to know a little more about yourself, right? Um, and things you see, the excitement, the aspiration, things like that. So I think it just, with me over time, it has grown. To today coming to a place where I can say, okay, I think I am this person, but like I said, nothing is constant. I still feel that we are very fluid, and whether it's in our thoughts or in our actions. Um, so yeah, so I don't think there was a singular moment, but I the only constant feeling I always had was the fact that I always knew I was different. I always knew there was I know it sounds a little tricky, but I always knew I was meant to do different things. I was
Okay.
meant to make a difference. Now, whether it's just in my immediate space or a larger space, or to a certain group of people, I don't know about that, but I always, from very young age, had that inner feeling that um, I'm not going to be just a regular person.
It's lovely to hear, and I know that you're making a huge difference to the community, and you're putting a lot of effort into it. But Sakshi, why did you even think you were different? Apart from making a difference to the world, but why did you
Yeah,
think you were different? What
yeah.
made you feel that? Different to what?
I mean, different as in like inside feeling that you know that you will you will end up doing things that you don't see people around you doing. That you will end up making a major difference. Things like that. So, like I said, and I would talk about different in if I compare it to what I was seeing around me. Uh, so in that sense, I always knew that I'm not going to have a regular life.
Game changer. That's what I would say. Right. And I hope you continue to change the game. Now, so Sakshi, so you were in Australia, you got back to India after 8 years, I believe. And so
Yeah,
just tell me about the conversation, your first conversation with your mom or your parents or your siblings about expressing your
yeah.
whatever that identity you felt you had at that time.
I mean, what I remember is at
Speak
the
up a bit,
age,
please, Sakshi.
yeah,
Sorry.
at what? What I
Sorry,
remember is that the
just
can
1 minute, huh, Sakshi? I'm just going to
yeah
don't go. Yes, Nicola.
yeah
Sakshi, we need to do something about your sound.
the sound.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
Yeah,
Have you got a
getting
better headphones or something?
Can you hear me now? Is it better?
but it keeps dropping.
It goes very, very faint, and then I can hear
Okay,
banging and
so
stuff in the back. Have you got another pair of
okay,
headphones you can use?
okay. I don't understand what you said.
No, no. Is there another pair of headphones you can use? Because obviously there's something wrong with the
No,
headphones.
I'm using AirPods.
Okay. For some reason, it keeps dropping
Yeah,
the volume.
the sound goes very, very faint, and it keeps like going down like it's echoing, like you're in an echo chamber. Have you got another pair?
No,
Not
I don't
earbuds.
have. No,
Try without.
it
Try
was
without.
okay. One second.
Yeah. Okay, just speak.
Hi, can you hear me now? Wait, let me switch this off.
Don't leave the studio at all, okay?
No,
We
no,
Yeah.
will just post
I'm here.
production. Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me? Is this better?
Better for me, Nicola. For
Yeah,
you?
I think that is better. Yeah, you were
Okay.
Yeah.
going so faint we could hardly hear you, Sakshi. So
All right. Okay.
it's
Yeah.
okay. We can cut this bit. Don't worry. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So 21, 28. Okay.
21.
So yeah. I've asked you the question. You remember
Hmm.
the question?
Yeah, yeah.
ठीक है.
Sibling.
हाँ, so Nicola,
Yeah,
I'll
I'm
Oh yeah, I'll better get off. One
yeah.
second.
yeah. Um, in terms of coming out to family, what I mean, I never got a chance to actually come out to my dad or my mom. But I did come out to my siblings, and I came out to my brother and sister both at the same time. Uh, Wherein I pretty much just sent a message saying I'm gay.
Oh, that was just a message.
Just a message, and there was nothing from my brother's side, but my sister's side was like my sister replied saying we need to talk, and that was that.
Okay. Okay.
And we both have had their own journey since then. You know, to today coming to a place uh, where they are even more interactive with my partner than me. It
Excellent.
was my sister. Yeah.
So, what did your sister want to talk to you about, if I may
Well,
ask?
I think she was just trying to understand, and again, like I said, this I'm talking about is like 2008, no, 2007, 2007. So again, when we say lack of language visibility, it was for everybody, right? So obviously my sister came from her own conceived notion about what it is, um, to be a person who's in love or attracted to same sex. So yeah, so she just pretty much wanted to hear my story about it, and then they were like, okay, are you mentally okay, and things like that. Um, because I was also having a down phase at that point in time. I just come out of a breakup, and the breakup was the result of me coming out to my family as well. So they just
Okay.
wanted to make sure that I'm mentally sound and things like that. And after that, in fact, I went on a 3 month vacation.
Okay. So there was no uh, a sense that maybe like how people think in the community that there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
That wasn't the thought,
No,
right, going
no,
on. Just that they
no.
wanted your well-being. They had your
Yeah,
well-being in mind.
yeah,
That's all.
yeah,
So
yeah.
so did your brother ever respond? Did he ever communicate to you at whatever and
Yeah, I
how?
mean, I think what happened really after. I think it's also I mean, not that one can dictate their circumstances of coming out, um, but what happened when I came out was because I was also very upset about the breakup of a relationship. I myself lacked the clarity of what I really wanted to tell them, right? So I was like pretty much all over the place, wherein I wanted break from work and I wanted to go away for a while and things like that. So I think the focus kind of pretty much shifted towards my mental well-being than about my sexuality. And that kind of shook my family a little bit, because until then they had seen me as somebody who pretty much knew what they wanted or what they wanted to do. Like I said, stubborn, headstrong, and things like that. And here I was like all over the place. So that kind of put things a little on the back foot. Um, and it took a little while for me to kind of come to a place, or for all of us to come to a place wherein we could actually talk about my sexuality. And by while I mean like couple of years ahead.
Oh, okay, great. I mean, it does. It is a journey, right? For
Yeah,
everybody, not just for
yeah,
yourself. It's also for
yeah,
those who care for us because,
yeah,
people assume things happen overnight. You sit with somebody, you tell them your story, you've come out, and everything is lived happily ever after. It doesn't happen
yeah,
like that. It's a
yeah.
slow process for
and
everyone.
and the thing is, like, I also came with the understanding that if they needed to know anything, I'm here, right? But I never felt the need that I need to uh, pretty much compel them to listen to what I have to say, because in terms of living my everyday life, they never put anything that was a deterrent. It was not that, okay, I had to conform to certain hetero formalities that I was not happy with, right? There was nothing like that. I still went on with things that I wanted to do. I started Gaysi. I was in family business. I did not get married, things like that. So when that part of my life was pretty much going smoothly, like I said, I never had felt the need to bring them all to the dining table and say, okay, let's talk about this.
Sure. Yeah. But a lot of parents that I have spoken with, whenever their child is coming out to them or they expect the child to come out and they've had an overseas experience, they say this is a Firang problem. This is a problem because if you had not gone there, then you would
Yeah.
not have been this person. Did that ever
Yeah.
happen for you? Did they ever blame it on Australia?
um, Not really, I wouldn't say that. I think because like I said, I never got the chance to come out to my dad because I was in Sydney when he passed away.
Oh, I'm
When I
sorry.
came,
Sorry, I didn't know that. Sorry.
things happen. And when I got back, it was my brother who pretty much became the head of the household, right? And with my mom, at times I used to have this friction where she was like, why you don't want to get married? And I'm like, I don't want to get married because I don't want to get married and I'm not ready for it. And she'd be like, what do you mean by you're not ready? Nobody's ever ready. You have to jump in it to be ready. And I'm like, no, I'm not ready to take that risk. um, so I suppose I don't think she's ever told me in those words that I blame sending you out for this uh, thought process that you've come back with. But I'm sure she must have thought that. But then I also feel that internally, I'm sure she knew I was queer because, I mean, mothers always know.
Exactly.
um, yeah, so I think she knew. Perhaps she was nudging me here there to kind of say it out loud, which I did not. Um, but perhaps it's a very different reality when you have to come out to your siblings, whereas you're coming out to your parent, right? So I can totally understand the kind of friction, apprehension, and difficulty a queer person must have faced when they came out to to their parents. Um, Again, very privileged, very fortunate that I did not have to go through that.
Well, I think that while you're very privileged and you're fortunate, but it doesn't mean that you haven't been through this apprehensions or fears yourself. Because I don't want to put that on you, but I feel that the fact that your mother was asking you to get married and that you had to even
Yeah,
consider having a conversation around that, which means
yeah,
you were not able to be your whole self, or your mother
yeah,
was not even accepting you for who you
yeah,
were, like you
yeah,
said. So
yeah,
it's not that, it seems very small and trivial to us when we have this conversation, but it
yeah,
isn't. I think everybody has that doubt, right? I mean, even if you
yeah,
want to get married outside your religion or caste, we have a whole drama that we go through, like conversations. But
yeah,
Sakshi, you said that you did come out in the late 20s. So
yeah.
at any point did you have a conversation at all with your mom at all, or that never happened? It's just over time.
No,
It's just
never.
been.
after I came out to my siblings, my brother pretty much told my mom that no one's going to ask her about marriage, and if she ever wants to, she'll come and tell us. So let's not trouble her with it. And that was that. After
Wow.
that, I never heard any conversation on it.
So
Uh,
basically, you had your brother's endorsement in a manner, say.
I mean, endorsement. I think, like I said, I think he was just so shaken up with my whole, my whole the difference in my behavior, right? And how out of character I was behaving. I think that kind of shook them up. Even my mother, though she had no clue what was really happening, all she knew was that I needed a break and I needed to go on a vacation, and that is all that was told to her. Um, so I think it was just more out of, like you said earlier, more about well-being concern than anything else.
Audience watching, I really want us to listen to this part of Sakshi's journey because it is so beautiful. This is exactly every morning when I wake up, I say, I want this to be our life for the entire queer community, that we don't have to worry. We don't have to talk about coming out. We have to just, I mean, I would love to say that there was no deterrent in our life. I mean, we all face challenges, but this is a challenge we don't need to face.
Yeah, I mean, I think where what really worked for me was the fact that even if they did not get it, they did not interfere in terms of how I wanted to go about with my life, right? And that kind of really helped me. Like I said, I mean, if I had to change a certain thing, anything, I would. I think what I would do is perhaps go a few years back and actually sit down and have a conversation with them. So that perhaps somewhere they could have been also part of my journey. I feel, in terms of sensibility and understanding, my journey and Gaysi's journey is pretty, like, stitched together. And I would have loved them to be part of it as well. Um, but sadly, that did not happen. But on the other hand, it, like I said, it did not interfere with my progress as a queer person.
No, it's wonderful because very often I have felt, Sakshi, that if we have family support, we all know that, especially parents and our siblings, if we have their support, I think we all flourish. Whether
Yeah,
you're queer or not, we all flourish, right? And then as a queer person, there's so much of fear in us, and that holds us back. And
yeah,
I love your story because I think it's a story of that how I keep using the word mainstream should be how our lives should be.
yeah,
I'm now going to move on to something else that you spoke about. You said you feel fluid as we are exploring ourselves, and so you started exploring that you
yeah.
feel fluid. I would love for you to explain to the audience what that term means.
I mean, there was a time where we used to say sexuality is fluid. Then we came to a point where we said gender is fluid. Today we are at a point where we say relationships are fluid. What I mean by fluid is that, at least in my context, what I mean is not necessarily in terms of my gender or my sexuality, but in terms of just how we live everyday lives, right? I mean, 2019 is very different from 2000. I mean, 2021, where COVID, etc., has just changed the way we think, the way we go about our everyday lives, our future plans, perhaps. And I think that is why I say fluid. Um, that that we should just have an open mind, and be empathetic towards others and ourselves. Not to sound too preachy, but more in the sense of that, you don't need to walk in someone else's shoes to understand their pain. Like, if someone is saying they are in pain, we should just take it, take their word for it, and you know, do the best that we can, uh, help them in that particular situation. Hence, I feel that it makes no sense being rigid, whether you are in the community or outside.
Sure, sure. So you set up something really wonderful and beautiful for the community, Gaysi Family. Can you share something more about it, and how is that going after so many years?
Oh, Gacy, I I think, for me, Gacy is not an entity. It's me. Um, some would call it a very unhealthy relationship because I can't see it separate from it. Like, I live, breathe it. and I have been doing that every single day since the day I started it. Um, but and DC also has grown, I would say. This year we in November we'll complete 13 years of existence. Yeah, and it's been crazy, and I would and like good crazy. Uh, and again, I know I keep repeating it, but again, that also comes from privileged spaces because of my coming from privileged spaces. People that are involved, were involved in PAC's progress, coming from certain privileges and bringing that to the space. Uh, but I, but I would like to believe that it kind of trickled down to a lot more people, even those that we never thought it would reach to. Um, so in 2008, starting from a multi-author blog to today coming to a place wherein we curate, create uh, content for brands, and kind of try and have, like you said earlier, mainstreaming the queer conversation. um, I mean, it's something that I am personally very, very proud of. It it takes a lot out of me, I would say, but it's still my pride and joy.
Amazing. I know, I love it. I follow you, on Instagram, and I see all the fantastic work you do for the community. And it gives me a lot of hope, Sakshi, because where I come from and where I came from, there was nothing like this,
Yeah.
and we are all privileged to have that platform, by Gaysi Family. But tell me, the reason I wanted to talk to you about Gaysi Family is also about the kind of uh, the community in itself, right? There was Section 377. So you said you started it 13 years ago, but the
Yeah.
Section 377 was overturned very recently, right? So
Yeah.
do you see a change pre and do you see a change post?
I have seen change through the 13 years, and I feel that uh, sometimes it's even though I'm like we are part of the community, sometimes it takes a lot to even keep ourselves updated with what is happening in the community. And social media, you know, just the very fact that today borders are diluted, right? Information, narratives, experiences, etc., are exchanged and passed on in minutes. Hence, there's just so much happening in the community. I would say even in community, we are kind of like living through different eras and you know. Different kinds of conversations. Uh, so it's pretty mind-boggling, but also heartwarming in that sense. And what I would say is that um, with Gacy, at least, I mean, it's not that what we do with Gacy, right, or what Gacy is doing. I mean, at the end of the day, Gacy just consists of people who come together. So what you see, a lot of content that we make, curate, or put out there are basically just community folks narrating their experiences and talking about their lived experiences, many of which you won't even find in the mainstream, right? I mean, I keep joking about it that we queer people are in fashion now, and everybody wants a piece of us. But they still pretty much dabble on superficial level conversations. Unfortunately, many content curators won't even bother going beyond the 10 Google search that they find. So the whole idea behind Racy is that to put in as much of diverse queer narrative that is there out there, because there is room for so much more. um, and with intersectionality, with politics and things like that, everybody has a very different yet very relatable story. So when I started Gacy back in 2008, the reason to start it was the whole relatability factor, like you also mentioned, the very fact that uh, you know even though then we had the internet, and there were massive women loving women forums, uh, where you could connect to other people and relate your story to, but there was nothing in the Indian context. So that was the reason why I even started Gacy, to kind of just share those narratives without any end goal as such. And today also we do the same thing. It's just about sharing those narratives and finding that relatability in every story that we put out there.
Sure. I mean, I think Gacy is doing a wonderful, playing a big role in this. But are people coming out to you? And do people come out? And are we able to provide them a safe space, which I'm assuming you do?
I mean, as queer person, we will come out till the day we die. We are always coming out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, people come out. Like, I mean, what I find really amazing is to in my journey with Casey is to see the number of you know queer women, non-binary, trans narratives. Where and many of them, most of them, in fact, using their real identity, coming full out, pretty much bearing their emotions for others to understand, be empathetic, relate to, which was not the case some years ago, right? Uh, and it just shows that you know. Um, Even though the internet gives you the privilege or helps you in kind of keeping your identity real a little vague, or hidden for that matter, there are still people who choose to be out there, um, and it's just amazing to see that. And yeah, I mean, I feel that, and I always feel that the more narratives you put out there, um, the more will come out.
Excellent. Sakshi, I have a last question before I ask my other last question. So that's the second
Yeah,
last question is, have you ever been threatened? Because you have been around, the Gaysi family has been around, like you said, for 13 years. It is
yeah,
much before anything became public, right? And
yeah,
we had the freedom.
yeah. No, that's why I keep talking about privilege a lot. Like, over the years, I have kind of understood that, when I hear, read uh, other narratives, which are not, uh, which are heartbreaking, and that's when you kind of realize those privileges, right? And then you also feel the need to make most of your privilege in order, wherein you give pretty much the platform to someone else to share their story in however whatever way they want to share. So in terms of Gacy, like, to be honest, we never faced any problem, even when we, and this is, I'm talking about 2010, 2012. 2012 is when we did our first offline event in Bombay. We've always done our events in mainstream venues. Never really faced any problem as such. What I've also understood from experience is that many a times people are just not informed, not necessarily homophobic, but not informed. So when you sit down and talk to them about it, many a times they come across as very reasonable people. Um, and today we are in a place where basically no one can ignore us, and that is something that we should be aware of, that we are many,
Yes.
uh, you know and collectively we can be much stronger.
I agree with you. And I think it's a lot of times it is about not being aware. It's not
Yeah,
about, feeling threatened or feeling insecure or deliberately trying to put anybody down or rejecting. It's just
yeah,
lack of understanding sometimes. And
yeah,
that is one of the reasons we started this, coming out stories from India, as I said, so that people can actually, nobody can now say that, oh, I don't have any access to
yeah,
stories. There are access. Your stories and access. We did Vasu Primlani. We've done, Oner. We've had Parmesh Shahani, Gurleen, Winnie. So cross section. We've had Beena, the chef. So there is a whole lot of content available, lived experiences available for the audience who are really interested in knowing, right? Improving their own awareness.
yeah.
Sakshi, I have you have something to say. I have a final question for you.
No, sure.
It's like
Ask.
you kept using the word privilege, and I agree with you.
Yeah,
What will be your message to those who are not privileged and they want to come out?
that's very hard, to be honest, considering that I really can't speak for them, because I'm not living through the difficulty perhaps that they are going through right now in time. But what I could perhaps say is that, you know, today, thankfully, there are a lot of resources available. There are a lot more avenues to reach out to for the kind of support one needs, and we've seen that fantastically happening in community space since last year due to COVID, wherein, you know, individuals to NGOs to support groups kicking into action and helping out those who really who are in need of help, whether it's, you know, in terms of moving houses, mental health, you know, everyday living. Uh, and so I would suggest is that, you know, if there is something that they really are dabbling with, perhaps they can. Like today, there are means and ways to reach out to uh, folks who are there to help them in that particular
Sure.
situation. Um, yeah,
Yeah, and is there a way that they can reach you if they wanted to?
I mean, yes, I mean, Gaysi's present in all social media, so they can reach out from there, or you know, just simply email us. And
What's your
it's
email? So if we can share that, anybody who wants to.
it's gaysyfamily@gmail.com.
And GAYSI, family@gmail.com, right?
Yeah,
ठीक है.
yeah.
I love the name Gacy. मुझे the first time I heard it, I said gay जैसी. I said मैं gay जैसी नहीं हूँ, मैं Gacy ही हूँ. So yeah, I'm
It
promoting Gacy.
basically, it was actually with, I had started Gaysi with the help of a friend named Broom. In fact, it's a little story. She used to write about, and in fact, she was in London back then, and she would write about her stories in the closet. So this is, I'm talking about when blogging was the big thing. You know, when blogging was your first entry to social media. So she used to write from the closet was her blogs. I think the blog's name was from the closet, and her name was Broom. The handle she used was called Broom, and she used to share stories. So she came up with this name Gaysi, wherein it was basically gay and desi. So we clubbed it together. Gaysi.
I see. To me, it's almost sounded like a dosti. But lovely. And I've read somewhere when I've researched you private human, and and it talks about your very interesting names that you've given to different things, and I love that. And I
we
love
spend
that.
we spend a lot of time in giving names to anything that we do, whether it is our zines, whether it's our offline events, or any sort of campaign. For some reason, we have to come up with something crazy. So we spend a lot of time in that.
Well, Gacy is an extension of you. I don't expect anything less than that. So, on
Yeah,
that note, Sakshi, thank you so much for a wonderful interaction. I mean, you've left me with a word, hope. Really. And I
thank
feel so good because, that's something that I think, not that I don't feel it, but I sometimes question it. Are we going in the right direction? I think we are going in the right direction. And with people like you, Sakshi Juneja, and the Gaysi family that you've started, I think we're just going to have a wonderful years ahead of us. And for our
you.
community, I think it's a blessing. And I hope that, your community together, our community together, London, India, wherever we are, that we
Yeah,
keep growing this together. We work collaboratively, because that's what something sometimes I've reached out to you, because our intent is the same, and we
yeah,
share these stories, share these narratives, and anything, anyway, where Nicola and I can support you, coming out stories from India can support you, please reach out to us. Yeah.
for sure, for
Thank you
sure.
very much. Thank you, audience, always for your love. Sakshi, once again, thank you. And I have to thank Nicola for her support in bringing this together. There are two
Thank you,
partners.
Nicola.
Thank you, Nicola. And there are two partners we have. One is our social media partner, Digital Fix, who does an amazing job of taking our narratives to the audience. And we have a little gift hamper coming to you, Sakshi, from the Herbal Theory. And it's beautiful essential oils and candles that they'll send to you. All handmade, by the way, all handmade,
Thank
sustainable, organic.
you.
And audience, yeah, I love their products, by the way. So audience, I hope you have loved this show, this particular series. Please write to us with any further feedback, thoughts, comments at theviewsroom@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us. Remember to follow me as Totally Out Now on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Raga Olga D'silva, for more of such stories and for interesting conversations. One last thing before I go. Remember, closets are for clothes, not to hide your truth. है ना? So signing out at Totally Out Now. You're watching Coming Out Stories from India, presented by the Views Room. Thank you, Sakshi.
Thank you.